Ex-Convicts of Reddit, what is your most pleasant prison memory? When I was a teenager, my dad was in prison. We would visit when we could. I remember I took a foil wrapper from an old school Hershey's bar and folded it into an origami rose. My dad took this rose and quietly called a very young guy who was visiting with his wife and gave him the rose to give to her. He explained that they got married just before he had to report for his sentence and that guys don't have anything they can give their wives as a romantic gesture. The young wife seemed so excited with that little foil chocolate scented rose. It was a sweet, romantic gesture on my dad's part that I had never really seen. About 15 years ago, when I was released from prison, I had nothing to my name. Only my $40 gate fee. A dear friend of mine on the inside made sure I had clothes, shoes and a job to go to. Harold, if you're out there, love you bro. There's a feeling of freedom even being locked up. Freedom from responsibilities. No rent. Free food. Routine. I needed that at one point in my life. I wouldn't wanna go back to that. Christmas Eve in Silverwater jail. Some very big, scary looking tatted dudes around. It's nighttime and possums start to come out of the trees. And I witness these huge dudes hand feeding them honey on bread. Very gently. I made a toilet wine version of D&D in there out of sheer boredom and was surprised to see how many people were really interested. I guess boredom reigns large, but still it was incredible to see a guy who in my eyes looked like a stereotypical gangster type get so much into our sessions. He'd constantly be badgering me about when we'd play next and always be super passionate. I was released quite quickly and I hope that he will retain this newfound passion. Playing Monopoly and finding out that the get out of jail free cards had been removed. The Christmas play at Hufanu County for the people of Walsenburg Company, known on the yard as Big Groovy. I was invited to participate. I played the Bumble. I had a custom made white fluffy hooded, sweatsuit. The term buckethead from our Santa Claus kept me laughing for weeks. At the show, I actually made kids cry, scream, and run in terror. In the visiting room. Lol. Oh. I'm black. 6 feet 3. 340 pounds. So pleasant. Snacks and candy and laughs. I felt like a person instead of a convict. There was one day in my unit the kitchen workers organized an event where they stole so much food out of the kitchen they fed the entire 250-ish man pod and all the races ate nachos together. Edit. Holy shit. RIP my inbox. Let's see how long I stay top comment after posting this. YouTube Phoenix the courtroom superhero. The 30-minute movie culminated with a White House petition to change the 13th Amendment and stop the US government from enslaving its own people in the justice system, and a list of elected officials in Congress and Senate next to their campaign contributions from private prison corporations. I did this in October 2014 before Trump ever announced he was running. Both sides sold their own people into slavery and big tech censored me. I've been permanent from our politics for 2 years now, since 5 minutes from publishing. I also own our prison strike BTW. Edit 2. I'm also banned from Twitter now. Edit 3. I'm fourth comment 10 minutes after last edit with over 3k upvotes. What happened you guys? On my birthday, the guards let some of my fellow inmates throw me a birthday party, make cake out of foods from commissary, blown up gloves for balloons, homemade birthday cards, and they even spent a few days, a couple decks of cards and few tubes of toothpaste to make their own Cards Against Humanity to play. Was a pleasant memory from a shitty time. Thanksgiving in Calipatria. I was working kitchen on the support yard and one of the free staff, not a corrections officer, but they still wear brown officer type uniforms, brought in a cut of steak, a pack of cigarettes and a small bottle of whiskey for each member of the prison crew on that shift. We all had steak and eggs. Got smashed and smoked ourselves silly before our shift ended. Pretty sure he would have gotten fired for that if caught. He was a super cool dude. Hargrave. I'll never forget his name. I have never laughed as hard as I have in prison. It's a very strange comedy as long as you're okay inside. I was in CMC for 4 years. Had a job feeding the inmates in the hospital infirmary. I smoke a lot of weed all my life. Even being locked up I had plenty of plugs. Long story short, I met an older gentleman who was very sick. I built a relationship with him knowing he didn't have much time left. And one day I decided to smoke him out and he told me that that was the nicest thing anyone has ever done for him in his 40 years being in the system. Sadly to say, he passed away shortly after. But I will always remember that one time we smoked out in the prison hospital and for a few hours felt that we were actually free. R.I.P. George. I wasn't your usual inmate. I was in for a truck accident where someone died. First ever offense. No violence. Didn't take drugs. Very rarely even drank alcohol. Never committed a crime in my life. So I was a polar opposite to pretty much everyone in there. It was a low security prison farm. And one day I decided to walk along the boundary fence to the library. Going on the wrong side of the fence technically meant that you escaped. So it was watched. As I'm casually wandering along, 2 guards drove up and told me to get into the car. They took me for a strip search. And demanded to know why I was on the other side of the fence. I wasn't. I asked them if they had cameras. And they said yes. So I told them to double check the footage because I'm not a duckwit trying to escape. They checked. And let me go. Everyone in the prison wanted details on what happened. I was a minor celebrity for the afternoon. And I had a bit of respect amongst the other inmates. Because even someone as straight as me copped tea from the screws. It was when a prison guard secretly let me borrow his copy of PC format so I could read it in my cell overnight. Not all screws are vicious assholes. If you guys are interested, there's a prison podcast out of San Quentin called Ear Hustle that's really cool. I've not gone to prison but I've spent 4.5 months in county. I've got TAD so the structure of jail really made me focus on working out and it was somehow peaceful. I've been clean for 4+ years so no plans on going back. But it's still a somewhat fond memory I have. Toward end of my sentence I was eligible for work release. Which meant that I could have an actual job off compound. I had an iPhone at work and got to have sex with my GF. The first few days in solitary. So quiet. The last 2 weeks. Not so hot. We, the work crew, got loaned out to build the local corn maze haunted house. It was a gorgeous fall day. And the 3 women on the board or whatever that organized the event and oversaw our construction were young and beautiful and hung out with us all day. We found a bottle of Tito's in the church basement that had obviously been there for months, so nobody missed it. We spent the day working in the sun. Flirting with the town hall girls. Sneaking nips from the bottle and bullshitting. It was actually a really fun day of ducking around with the boys even by regular standards, so to have such a great day while inside was truly amazing. The end of the day one of the girls bought us a shitload of McDonald's. Just dozens of burgers and piles of fries. Def best day of the time I served. I did some time in HMP Weatherby back in the 90s. Some of us went on a work party to clean up litter at RAF Church Fenton after an air show. When we were walking around the airfield we were joined by some of the pilots. St. Patty's Day one year. The guards were in a super good mood and let us get extra food and dessert. This was my best memory because usually the guards were super cold and aggressive but for some reason they were really chill that day. Not a convict. But I did do about 2 weeks in felony block in a county jail once. Eventually was given 2 years probation and had to go to rehab but got my felonies dropped off my record. The best thing that happened in those 2 weeks was the guap we all made. This kid in my pod was being transferred to another prison located clear across the state. He had no clue why they were moving him. He started crying uncontrollably. Which you would think is the last thing you'd wanna do in jail prison. All of the inmates in my pod immediately went to console him. He was hugged and made to feel as comfortable as possible. Another time I was arrested the day after my daughter had painted my toenails rainbow colors. I was in a holding cell with 25 other guys. They had all been looking. But finally one guy asked me if I had a daughter. I explained to him that she had in fact colored my nails. Then, all of the inmates started talking about their kids. Specifically daughters. It was a fantastic experience for jail. Grown men crying because they ducked up and couldn't see their kids. Duck the criminal justice system. 1 in approx 140 Americans are imprisoned. That's insane. The vast majority of incarcerated people don't belong in there at all. It's crazy. The system needs to be completely overhauled. My bunkie was Wishbone from Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. He was pretty chill. I wasn't in prison. Just in jail for a few months. We called County the puppy pen. Had an issue with another inmate that led to me moving tanks and being threatened with more time by the captain. When I got to the new tank I was feeling super bad about myself and too depressed to eat. I skipped dinner the night I moved. Skipped breakfast the next day. Skipped lunch. I didn't have contacts or glasses so I was practically blind, but I kept hearing some other chick in the tank who had a real high pitch along with a real vulgar vocabulary, so it was like hearing Barbie saying duck a lot. She noticed that I wasn't eating and had tried to get me to ingest literally anything, but I was busy feeling sorry for myself. By the time the dinner cart came around she told me, "You're gonna grab a tray or I'll shove the food down your ducking throat." I grabbed a tray. We were good friends for the time we spent together. I hope she's doing well. I had just got busted in Ireland at the second trip to Tip Music Festival, and being English and in Limerick Stab City, I was a little concerned. Turns out no one gave a shit where I was from as long as I was upbeat. The bloke in my cell pulled out a half-ounce bag of weed from his ass and we got totally ducking stoned. It was a mixed prison and from about 8 PM people were shouting to and fro. Then a chap was shouting his undying love for Mary. A guitar started playing and he sung the key to the Elton John song to her. It was utterly silent as the whole prison listened. I had to hold my chest as I thought my heart was literally going to explode. Getting hooked on The Simpsons from S1E1. Reading. I was up to 2 to 4 books a week. Got as good of a grasp on quantum mechanics as one could hope. I'd immediately think of the friends I made. Gave me a bunch of guys I could talk to about things I never used to feel comfortable talking to another male about. A lot of it changed me mentally. I started to look at myself, my own beliefs about humanity. What it meant to be a man. What kind of person I really want to be. And what I really want out of my life, and saw how I was actually a jerk to people who loved me. I was selfish but couldn't see it because I made excuses and justified my actions with plausible reasons. I wasn't in prison so it doesn't technically apply. When I was serving time for drug charges. Saturdays my tank would have later bedtime, so we would usually pitch in some of our commissary to make a spread pizza and share it like a community LMAO. I was in solitary for 3 months and they allowed CD player there. I had only one disc, DMX. Rough Riders. I listened to it endlessly and somehow it inspired me to write something. 2. I started from rhymes and short poetry and 15 years later I own a copywriting agency and writing makes me living. Peace DMX. Inspiring me for change. First day in for marijuana possession. Original manufacturing BC, they were homemade edibles. Go to my pod and straight to my bed. Almost immediately the meanest looking dude. Iron cross on his face. Chest and shoulders forward, comes up to me and asks, "Yo, you got an extra blanket?" I'm like, damn. The hustling is starting right away. So I try and hit the middle ground of tough and agreeable. I toss him one without looking his way. Say, this one's full of holes anyway. I don't need this shitty. So he takes it. Goes to his bunk. Grabs his clean extra shirt and sets the now folded blanket in the shirt and hands it back and says, "Here. Man. Didn't want your first sleep to be without a pillow." I was seriously ready to cry. Played cards with that guy every night till I got white boy lucky and got my whole case expunged through judicial diversion. Sleep. I never did hard time. Just sat in jail until I could get bailed out. The dude in my cell knew he was going away and thought I was too. I lied and said I was in for murder charges when I was actually in for domestic violence, which was later admitted to being a lie she made up. But anyway, I told him I never been to prison before and he showed me how to make a fifi. Disclaimer guys. Everyone here is talking about prison life in America or in Western countries. Because oh boy, prisons in third world countries are a different kind of hellhole you hope you never experience. So I did 5 years in jail and prison in all. While I was in F.C. Loretto, I had a Hispanic cellmate. I was daily hustling to get money to smoke K2. Until one day my cellie sat me down and showed me his photo album. The album showed 17 years worth of pictures of his child. He told me, unless you want to watch your boy grow up like this, I suggest you change your ways. This really hit my heart hard. I got released from prison just 3 years ago. And now I own my own house. Truck. Have a great job at the Carpenters Union. My son is my best friend and my entire world. I'm forever grateful for this man. For giving me that moment of charity. Couldn't imagine even missing another day of my boy's life. South American jail. Overcrowded. First night the only space was in the corner, where there was a roach nest. Over the next 7 days, using my charisma and writing letters for the illiterate prisoners, I went moving my way onto a mattress. Then a thicker one. Then thicker and thicker. Then one about 5 inches thick THST, a fan kinda blew air towards. And bam. The thickest one with the big fan. It's like VIP. I spent 3 days in a halfway house when I was 23. I know it's not an extreme, but I was there. I read more books in those 3 days than I did since then and in the years before then. Jail is where I figured out how to read for leisure. Pretty much the only useful thing to come out of it. I love books now. They're a great substitute for getting drunk and ducking shit up. Dropping half a pill and listening to a Creamfield set by Judge Jules. Was due out in 2 weeks. Leaving that bitch. I was only in a jail cell for an hour or so in a Nick subway police station. Yeah. Apparently those exist. I got arrested right outside it too. So I literally got cuffed and walked about 20 feet. Anyway. I was in with a guy who got busted selling candy in the train. I guess he was a frequent flyer there. Because he got a pizza delivered to the station and they brought it to him in the cell. It was just as I was being let out though. He did give me his business card. The Dementors. Shoulder put a serious tag on this. Bizarrely. He's managed to get mostly serious responses. On one of my birthdays I was given a cake and lots of weed. Good times. Damn. When me and a couple of guys offered to repair the roof on one of the buildings in exchange for some ice cold beers on a hot summer day. My first prison BJ. I still haven't gotten one as good on the outside. 2 things. The time I beat up this guy for stealing my Playboy centerfold and magazine cutout of Taylor Swift looking SY. Not prison. But jail for this one. The few moments where I was standing at the door of the jail kitchen and caught a glimpse of my GF walking from one unit to another. She said hi and smiled. I turned bright red. It was nice. Man, do I miss her. Staring down a man eye as I dropped a deuce. Me and the boys got a hold of some wigs and made some memories. We all dressed up as the Golden Girls and reenacted season 2 episode 8 Vacation. It was just so neat that the guards gave us all their wives' dresses to keep. We wouldn't let Blanche change out of it and she quickly became the belle of the balls. I can still hear Jim pleading, I don't want to be Dorothy. But after we knifed him, the wig went on just fine. Good times.